Hello, hello, fairy gardeners. We're gonna take a few minutes to let people file in and get comfortable. Welcome everybody, Fairy Garden Workshop. We're gonna have a lot to talk about fairy gardens tonight. We'll take a few minutes. If you're watching this recording, you can probably skip ahead to about the 3 or 4 minute mark. I'll get started around there to give people a chance to file in and get comfortable and make sure everything's working for you correctly. If you're not familiar with Zoom, you won't be able to see yourself, but you should see me and you should see maybe my screen that says Fairy Gardens on it. So hopefully. I'm usually the moderator for these things, but tonight I'm playing the, hello, Alicia. Yeah, if you scroll over the bottom of your screen, you'll see a chat function. So if you need to say something to me or something's not working for you and you need some help, that's a good place to go because you don't have a mic, and otherwise. I'm normally the moderator for these things. Tonight I'm wearing 2 hats. I'm also the presenter. So hopefully everything will go fine, but if it doesn't, these creative things usually have a little bit of leeway to them. I cannot see you. Oh, Maddie cannot see me. Okay, Maddie. I don't know why yet would be that you can't see. Do you see the screen? Like, can you see fairy gardens? I'm just gonna be a little tiny thing in the corner probably. You might try, if that doesn't work and you can't get it to work, you can log out and log back in. The same key should work. Yeah. So some of you were concerned about not having the starter kits that I had put together. I wish I could have put together more. I was only able to do a limited amount. And when I first thought of doing this, I thought about doing it in person and just limiting the amount of people in the class. But since we're not doing it in person, I think that you absolutely do not need the kit. In fact, it might be beneficial not to have the kit before this, because I'm going to have so many ideas. I'm going to be going over so many fairy gardens that you might have something in mind that you would want. I can see your screen. I cannot see you. Oh, you can see the screen. Well, the screen is what's important. I guess I'm not that important. As long as you can hear me. Yeah, so if you do have trouble, just ask in the chat and we'll try to help you out there. So yeah, if you don't have the kits, then it might even be better because you don't want somebody else making those decisions for you. And after I go over everything that I'm going over tonight, you might have your own ideas of what you want for your fairy garden, and where you want it and how you want it to look and what kinds of things you want to include in it and things like that. So it'll be good. You may need to click full screen under the options tab at the top. Oh yeah, that might be it. I think that must be for, because I have full screen right here. Pause recording. See if anyone else is filing in yet. We're at the 4-minute mark, so I'm going to get started. My name is Jill Van Den Eng. I work at the Kimberly Little Shoe Public Library, and I'm also a master gardener. I became interested in fairy gardens probably about 10 years ago, and I think it's mostly because I like imaginary places and I like little things, and that's pretty much what fairy gardens have. They have little things in them. Let's see. I'm going to get started here. Like I said, if you don't have the kit, it's fine. And those of you who do have the kits, there's some of you who have not picked them up. If you don't, oh good, you can see me now. If you do not pick up your kit by, I would say the end of the day on Thursday, staff is going to take them home. So the few people that don't, I have Shelby Andrews, Kim Seidel, and Nora Bohm. Your kits are in Kimberly. And Stacy Bratz, your kid is in Little Chute. So you can just come anytime during open hours and ring the doorbell or call the library and say, I'm picking up my kit, and it has your name on it. It's waiting for you. Okay, so let's get this. I'm going to tell you about the format of this. So I'm going to go through my presentation first. We're going to take questions and answers at the end. You have an option of a Q&A box somewhere near the bottom of your screen. We'll take questions then, and then I'm going to go over your kits. So the people that, not everybody's going to want to sit and watch this, putting together the kit. So if you want help with it or you want to see what's in the kit, you can stick around afterwards. The rest of you, after the Q&A, you can go. It'll be pretty much done for your purposes. So let's get this already started. So what is a fairy garden? So like I said, I got interested in these about 10 years ago, and they're kind of like, they're like miniature places that you have. Sometimes they're hidden, sometimes they're not so hidden. They are welcoming to fairies and gnomes and little people. They usually have a little miniature garden. They have little structures in them. Sometimes you'll have little table and chairs or other things. They are designed to give your green thumb a place year-round to lure fairies and good luck to your garden. It's a tiny space that's tended with love. So like, they're usually kind of a neat. And the design and components are limited only by your imagination. There are so many different ways you can do a fairy garden. There is no right or wrong way. You can make one bigger scale or even a smaller scale. There's all kinds of things you can do with this. So here's an example, our first example. I'm going to have a lot of examples for you. This, you can see a little birdhouse. It looks like it's just in a shallow pot. I don't even know if those are real plants. They might not be. And they have little fairies welcome, and she's got a little fairy there with a little house, you know. It's kind of a neat thing. This is one of my favorite ones. I have this garden in this a lot because I really, really love some of the components of this. It looks like someplace where a little fairy is going to want to come and sit down and have a chat and like sit under these flags, you know. It's like a little space, I don't know, cute. Okay, and this is like, sometimes just adding a door makes you think about fairies. You know, where does that door go? So a lot of fairy gardens include a door. And sometimes it's only the door, you know. You can see that they have little stones leading up to the door. This is a little fairy garden in the fairy garden. They must have made these things with clay, or I don't know if they're dollhouse stuff, but all these are little miniature things that are put together to make it look like some little person lives there. And here's a bigger picture of all those last few slides that we looked at. You can see there's the door. They have like the path leading up to the door. They have like this, they have a few little plants in here and there, and there's probably a lot of plants around it. So the first thing you're going to do when you want to put together a fairy garden is decide on where you want it. What kind of container do you want? Fairies really like repurpose things. So if you have an old wash tub or pot or planter, I've seen people do them in old shoes and old bird baths. Those are excellent. Those are things that fairies just love. If you're going to include, some things I want you to know about the container is if you're going to include live plants, you're going to need drainage holes. So you might have to drill a hole in the bottom of whatever you're doing. When I look for some, and you might need, depending on what it is, if it's a shoe or something, you're going to want to line it with plastic or tin to protect it, because soil will break things down. It's organic. If it's like a softer material or wood or something like that, you're going to want to line it. When I look at containers, I look for something that is kind of not as tall as normal pot would be and has a wide opening, because then you can have more space for your fairy garden stuff, you know, to put your little items in and make your paths and things like that. So it gives you more space for that. And also, you don't need a container at all. You could do this out in your yard. You could do it under a tree or like in your garden somewhere where you think you could tuck these things away. But you should know, like, if you do one outside in your yard, you're going to have to consider different things than you would in a container. Because a container you can bring inside in the winter, so a lot more things can be supported, where you're going to have to think about, do you have to take it apart every winter to not destroy it? Or, you know, what plants you're going to use are going to be a factor as well. So here's a couple of containers that people have used. I have seen this a lot. That people like glue moss and stones and things like that to a pot, and then they added a door. A lot of fairy gardens have doors, and then they have little things on there, and they just decorate that, and then you can put whatever you want in the pot. You know, your fairy garden is the pot, it looks like. This one, it looks like it's in some kind of a old tub. You can see the handle here. And I kind of like this one because I like the tree house idea. That's kind of neat. They obviously redid a log or something here. Lots of repurposing things. Fairies love that. And it looks charming in a fairy garden. So this is one that somebody has made, where you kind of stack 3 different size pots. You know, the big one's on the bottom, and then you have like a medium sized one, then you have a small one. They have these little ladders that connect these gardens. And, you know, they have little plants in here, and they have little deer and things like that. This is kind of neat. This would be neat like on a porch, like if you put this on your front porch. Imagine people walking up would kind of see that. I thought that was neat. This is another pot. I think you can buy these, and I think they even come with the house attached to it, you know. So they have these little steps here, and then they have the house. Then you put your plants in here, and your stones, and your different accessories. This one, again, looks like an old wash tub, like that they repurposed and put a fairy garden in it. A wash tub is nice because it's a big, wide opening that you can add a lot of things to. You know, they got a bench over here and a little tree over here and some different kinds of plants and stuff. And this, at first I thought this was a bird bath, but I think it's actually a pot if I look more carefully at it. But a bird bath is a great place for, especially something like this where this doesn't need any or have much soil. It's got these plants, but they probably have a little bit of soil under the sand. But, you know, like a fairy garden with sand is like perfect. It's like a beach garden. So that's kind of neat. And like, here's one in an old wheelbarrow. Wheelbarrows are pretty common. I see those a lot. And then you can wheel them in and out, maybe into your garage to protect them for the winter. Maybe you don't want that in your house. And you probably had to plant it every year. Maybe you do want to add and stuff. They also use this in conjunction with a tree that goes up to a tree, the door and the tree. I think that's kind of cute. This is another wheelbarrow. You can see how much room you have in a wheelbarrow for all kinds of things. You know, and they even have pots in here. They don't even have them planted in the thing. Path, and they have a little bench over here with a table. You got a little patch of flowers. This little gnome house. Wheelbarrows are really good if you have an old one. Although we have a, I think the metal ones are kind of a little more charming looking than like a plastic one, but maybe I'm wrong. If you fill it up enough, it might look okay. Here's an old, I mean, nobody would keep this thing, but it looks great. And you could just wheel this anywhere in your garden, and you know, a little fairy gnome garden. It's kind of fun I like the moss all over in this one. Got a couple houses in this one. Probably the fairy that's visiting the gnome. And you don't have to think big, you know, if you don't want a wheelbarrow or a wagon full of stuff, you could do it in a teacup. I mean, this is an old teacup. They have a plant in it, and they stick some things in it. And I love it when they do these sticks with the strings and stuff. It looks really quaint, you know, and you can put it anywhere. And it can sit on your desk and, you know, bring some good luck to where you're working. Here's another teacup one. I thought this was really cute. It's got like, you know, the mushrooms and stuff are down here in the saucer, and then they have this little ladder up, and they even have a plant that's growing on the ladder. And they got like cacti in here, and teacup fairy gardens are really cute. They make good gifts too, if you wanted to put one together and give to somebody for a gift. So a theme. A lot of times fairy gardens are going to have a theme or some kind of feeling you want to project or something. So I'm going to go over a couple of themes that you might want to try for your fairy garden or might want to incorporate into your fairy garden that you're going to create. Here with the beach theme again. I like a beach theme because I like the beach. This looks like it's in a bucket even, which kind of gives you a beachy feel. And you notice they use like blue rocks to make the water, which is kind of neat. That's kind of neat. I like that. A little drink umbrella. This one is a camping theme. Obviously, I don't know where they got this camper or if they made this, but that's really clever. I love the door on it and the little chair that has that gridding in it. I can't tell what that's made out of, but I'm pretty sure somebody crafty put that together. You know, and they got that little tire swing over here and its colors all match. This one's nice. I like this fairy garden. This one, it looks a bit more woodsy. Again, it's got the chair, the Arendon chair for the fairies. And they got a couple of these taller plants that look like trees. And then they got some hens and chicks, and they got like, looks like they got a little stone brickwork kind of something going on here. And this could be a, maybe we're going for a fire pit or something over there. I can't quite tell, but I feel this gives a woodsy feel more than the other ones. This one is like a park bench. They got this tree. This is probably a holly or something like that. You know, and they got a little path here where you're going to stop. It's like sitting in the park on our bench for the fairies to rest on their travels. This one is from somebody who likes fishing. A little fisherman theme with the little boots and the fishing pole. And again, they use the blue stones to make water for the pond. There's even a little dog over here sitting by the bench. So keep them company because you're sitting fishing a long time. And here's a door. Sometimes all you need is a door on the base of a tree with a little path leading to it is really charming. And then add a few mushrooms, a couple plants around it. You got to start to a fantastic fairy garden. It's so neat when you see these things, when you're out in people's yards. So once you decide what you want for a theme, the next thing you should do for your, and you have your container, you know where you're going to do it, you know kind of what you want it to look like. Now you're going to start gathering the things that you need for the fairy gardens. And again, fairies really love repurposed things, so you should be looking around the house for things that you can use in other ways, or at rummage sales, or what people are throwing out, you know, old bird houses, dollhouse accessories, popsicle sticks. I see these used a lot. They can be glued on things, or they can be made into a fence, or they can be made into a swing, like we saw a couple swings. Bottle caps can be stepping stones. You should also look for things in nature, like look for tiny twigs and acorn caps and pebbles. I mean, we saw a lot of paths you can make with pebbles. You can use acorn caps for a lot of things. Those twigs are great, you know, to make those stuff sticking up with the little train of things on them. You can find other accessories at the dollar store or craft stores or Etsy. Sometimes they can be kind of expensive, which yeah, they can be, you know, especially if you're buying like little fairy figurines and like pre-made things. But you can also make a lot. Like you've seen, you can take a little piece of a big stick and make it into a little table and things like that. So let's see what kind of, so this you can see they made acorns. These are acorns. They made them into little birdhouses. This took an incredible amount of skill, and I think it's pretty inventive, you know. They drilled little tiny holes into these and painted them. These are pretty cool. This would be really charming in a fairy garden because who doesn't like the little birdhouses? Tiny things. This is another use of an acorn. This person made it into a teacup set, you know, the acorn caps are the cups. This is my mouse. Ooh, what is happening here? Lost my mouse for a minute there. Okay, so we've got teacups. These are little teacups. Oh, I lost my mouse again today. Here it is. Yeah, this little, they use sticks here and like twine or some kind of thing to glue that on there and make that into a cup and a teapot. That would be charming sitting on a little table. Here we got, you can see the use of sticks here. They have three different things here. They have the swing over here. They have a flag over here. You could just make that with a little bit of piece of fabric. And here they turned it with string, a bunch of them into like a ladder. So this is like a very simple fairy garden, but it's very charming and very cute. This is using a lot of things. We have an old tin here that they turned into a fairy bed. You know, they laid some leaves down and they have this stuff they use for the pillow. And they also have over here, they use stamps, or I think those are stamps, and sticks to make into like picture frames, which super cute idea. Super cute. I have a closer look at one of those picture frames here and see how they kind of put it together just with a couple of sticks you find out in the yard. You can do a lot of things if you use your imagination. So a lot of fairy gardens include a fairy or a gnome house. This is like kind of usually the central part of a, if you do have it, it's going to be like one of the central parts of your thing. You don't have to have one. And again, you don't really need a house. You could just have a door somewhere. You don't have to buy one. You could make one. So this, we'll look at a couple of those. Some ideas that you can do for making a fairy or gnome house if you don't want to buy one, and you do want to include one. So this was like I said, a door. They added a door to this stump kind of thing. I don't know if they put that there, if that was a tree there, and they have a path leading up to it, and instant house, instant little fairy house. And here they're using a birdhouse. Birdhouses make great fairy houses. You can paint them. They're really easy to manipulate. They're kind of easy to find. People usually have ones laying around. You can find them in places, you know, and you can add little details to them. You don't have to have them as they are. Like they obviously painted this. You could also cover it in like glue things to it that you find out in nature to make it look more woodsy, like this. They like glued stones to that and whatever these are, you know, moss. They made this door out of sticks. You could just glue together a bunch of sticks like that and put a door on it. This might not even be a birdhouse. It could be anything. And you can see, like I was saying, how you could take a big, like heavy stick or log and make that into stepping stones. They just repurposed things there. And these aren't even plants. I think they just put sticks in the ground. It looks cute. Terracotta pots. These are pretty popular. This, again, we've looked at something similar to this before, where you glue moss and window and door and stones to a pot, and then you put whatever you want in the pot, and you got a fairy garden already made. You can also make a fairy house out of a pot. Here they took a pot and they turned it upside down and they painted it to make it look like a house. They just painted the doors on there. They used the bottom of the pot for the roof. Then they use a littler terracotta pot, or maybe it's not even terracotta, as the chimney. So this would be super easy to make. You could also use tents, which I love the idea of these tents. They think they're so cute and they're so simple. You just need sticks, maybe some twine and some fabric, and you can make a tent. This one, they kind of went with a theme of it. There's a little campfire there. There's a little knapsack. Yes. Here's another tent, more like a teepee tent. They just use sticks, and it looks like it's even held with a twist tie. And this is probably like a, I'm not sure what that is, like something somebody knitted. Like could be a scrub brush, or could be a doily. I don't know, do people still use doilies? And they get into the sticks with these flags. I just love these flags when people do that. I think they look really neat. A tree trunk. Tree trunks, I think I mentioned this. Tree trunks make great fairy houses or gnome houses, you know? And if you have one in your yard that has a good spot, under a tree trunk is a great place for something like this. You know, like they added the door, they put a little window up here, they have a path leading up to it. They even created kind of a stream here with the things, and you'll probably want to put more hardy plants, but we'll get to plants later. These fern are perfect because fern and fairies just go together so well. Here's another tree trunk one. They use stones around and pine cones to kind of create the space a little bit. Littler stones here. This takes a little bit more work. You're going to be working on this for a while. They got stones leading up, but it's pretty cool, I think. This is another tree trunk. They added a door. They got a couple little details here outside the door. This one doesn't look like it's quite as much work. This looks like a door added to one of these birdhouses things that has moss on the roof. They glued a lot of things. They put made a bird bath out of a terracotta pot here. You put the terracotta pot upside down, and that must be like the bottom for a bigger pot than that one. Added a bunch of little stones for paths. Stones make great paths. Here's another door. I love the mushrooms on the side of the path on this one, and all the fern that are growing on over it. You feel like you are entering something magical on this one. And the blue door, it's pretty cool. So now plants. What kind of plants do you want in your fairy garden? And I have a bunch listed here. I'm going to go over all of them so you don't have to worry about writing these down. Now, most of these plants are for like indoor fairy gardens. I'll note that. And I'm not going to really talk about moss. I haven't worked with moss much. I think it looks cool if you can pull it off. You can use fake moss pretty easily to cover the surface of your dirt. And it has the same charming thing to it, but I feel like moss needs to have a certain environment to grow, and I don't know if that's easy to recreate. So fairy vine, this was the first. It's also known as angel vine. This is the scientific name for it. This is a delicate but sturdy plant for the miniature garden that is normally used for ground cover. It has tiny stems that are deep red, contrasting nicely with the small round leaves. Grow it in a miniature trellis or an arbor for fun. So this is one of those that you could like trail over a little arbor. That would be really cute, or have it trailing down somewhere. It says you should repot or divide it every 2 years. It's ground cover and it wants to cover the ground. And you want to interrupt the growing process and not let it get established. So this is a good choice. When I was looking, I went looking for plants for this program. I found that the end of July is not a good time to look for plants. So I was not able to find any of this, but I think it's pretty easily available. Flats black, this is pretty cool, also called brass buttons. This is the thing. This looks like a fern, like we were talking about how ferns and fairies go together. This is like a miniature little fern, and it's got these really cool black and green leaves to them that look really nice in a garden, and it stays small. This is also ground cover. A lot of what you're going to look for is ground cover because, you know, you want small things in a small garden, you know. You don't really want a big plant or it's going to overwhelm everything. And small leaves, I think, even the scale of the leaves you want kind of small. This tight growing ground cover has a ferny foliage with near black highlights on the leaves. Carpet-like perennial is perfect filler for cracks between flagstones in moist, shady areas. Quickly fills in to keep weeds out. Maybe used as evergreen lawn substitute. These are good in rock gardens. Like if you're looking for ground cover or rock garden plants, they're usually probably going to be good in a fairy garden. Dwarf grasses. I saw this recommended, and in some of the gardens we looked at, they had these, especially this Mondo grass, because they form these clumps and they stay pretty small. They're only 2 inches tall and maybe 2 to 4 inches tall. It's very nice. The thing I want to point out with this is if you would to use Mondo grass, you should use it on a garden that you're going to bring inside, because it is not for our zone. It's for zone 6 to 11. So it would have to be for an indoor, and it might be hard to find. I'm not sure. I haven't shopped. Ooh. Then I also came up with this dwarf lily turf, tough but showy evergreen ground cover, has a deep green grass-like foliage and upright tufts. This is going to get a little taller. You can see here it's along a pathway, but it is good for zones 4 through 11, so you could use it in your outdoor garden. It might need trimming if you don't want it to get too tall. So the grasses, that's my recommendation for those. Ferns. So like I said, ferns and fairies go together. It can be difficult to find micro ferns. When I was putting this together, I found a blogger who had said that someone tried to sell her a Boston fern that was like, they said it was miniature, but it turned out it was not. Ferns can also be really picky. They like to be under a tree. Like I mentioned, if you have an under the tree fairy garden, that could be a good place for a fern if it's wet and shady. I think I would opt for the Platts Black instead of this if you're doing an indoor garden. But outdoors, it'd be great. And it's not something you have to like worry about replacing every year. Miniature evergreens. I was not able to find any of these, but they exist. I see them in the gardens. If you're going to look for something like this, you're going to want to get something with a small pot of 1 to 3 inches. And you might need to keep it trimmed to keep it from growing, keep it miniature. Kind of like a bonsai, you know. I don't know if anyone remembers bonsais. You would trim these trees to be smaller so that you keep their shape and stuff. So that's a good option though, and they look really charming if you can find them. I enjoy them. Hens and chicks, these are easy to find. They're cheap. They come in a million colors. They're easy to take care of. You can use them almost anywhere. They're great. They're great. And they're not expensive. So if it doesn't work out, you can pull it out and try something else. I absolutely love them. And they look so cute in fairy gardens because they have such interesting shapes in their leaves. Definitely recommend these. Succulents. I included succulents. I like the hens and chicks, which is actually a succulent. They're easy to find. They're fairly inexpensive. You can find them in a ton of different shapes. You know, like this could almost pass for a tree in a fairy garden. Or, you know, look at all these shapes. You can even have the ones that are trailing, you know. These cute little colors, all these different colors. Yet over here, we got this trailing peas. Really cute. Okay, and on to the next one. Creeping Thyme. I looked for this and I really wanted it after I saw this. It's ground cover. It gives off a little lemony fragrance and it even has little flowers on it, which is fun. It never grows very tall, and it's again like something that's a thing. It'll grow great in a rock garden. Creeping Thyme. Super cute. Look how cute that is. Very low maintenance, would work good. Might forgive not getting watered enough. And along the same line as woolly thyme, which you can see here. Woolly thyme is kind of like Same thing, only it's woolly. The little hair on it. I wonder if I should put the chat down. Yeah, I will put that down. Woolly thyme. You can plant this just like the other one. It has a little bit of fragrance, but not much. You don't want to eat it. It only grows 1 inch high, so it's perfect for like a fairy garden. And there is the flowers. These are the miniature dwarf daisies. These are also, I wanted to point out, these are zone 7, so indoor garden only if you have, unless you want to replace it the next year, which you can do. You can change your fairy garden all year long. It never has to be the same. These only get 1 to 5 inches high, and look at how darling those are. These flowers are just so precious and tiny and cute. Spike moss. Spike moss forms a low creeping mat and feathery leaves. Plants prefer rich, moist, wet soil and shady. Zones under 6 should overwinter in containers. So this is another one that would be in a container, but you can see how it kind of grows spiky. Kind of a moss. Miniature African violets. These I came up as a suggestion I saw over and over again, and they do look cute, and if you can find them. And they do provide a beautiful flower. I love African violets, but I do not have luck with African violets, so I decided to include here on this thing all of the things you need to do to keep an African violet alive. They do well in container gardens and terrariums due to their small size. Keep humidity levels between 50 and 60% and the room temperature around 70 degrees. Don't let the temperature dip below 60 or go above 80, as this will inhibit healthy growth. Place in moderate to bright indirect light. If using artificial light, place lights 10 to 12 inches above the plant. Keep soil moist but not soggy, and use room temperature water when watering. Avoid getting the leaves wet when watering this, as well as it could cause leaf spot. African violets need 8 hours of darkness every day to bloom. African violets prefer a slightly acidic soil with pH between 6.4 and 6.9. So like reading this, I feel like you need to be a scientist to keep these things alive or blooming. I mean, room temperature water, you gotta have the pH of this, and it's more work than I like to give, but it's definitely an option. Dianthus, I happen to love Dianthus. They call it the cottage flower, also called pinks. It's treasured for its grass-like blue-green foliage and abundant starry flowers, which are often spicily fragrant. This is also like a, now they range from tiny creeping ground covers to 30-inch tall cut flowers. You're gonna want the ground cover ones. You want them, unless you want a really tall garden, you don't want 30-inch tall. So it's a popular border plant, so that's kind of where you're gonna, again, borders, ground cover, that kind of thing. These are great. I love the foliage on these are like a, not green, it's like a blue-green. So I just love that. And they're so pretty, and they bloom for, I feel like they bloom for a long time. Okay, so now we're on to accessories. Now you got your plant, you have your house if you're gonna have one, you kind of have an idea of what you want, you've picked some things up that you want to do. We're gonna talk about accessories because fairy gardens are all about the details. There are tons and tons of things that you can do with them. So here are some of the things you can do. You can add a pond, you can add some paths, you can add benches or tiny tables. You can add fairy lights. I think somebody suggested that in the chat. I don't know where you buy them, craft stores or on Amazon, you can get fairy lights that, you know, they're very cute. You can add little gardens like we saw in the beginning. All these tiny details add a lot of charm. So here you can see all these details, and like something, you don't have to do this, but I noticed with fairy gardens, like you pretty much cover every bit of the dirt, especially ones in containers. You know, they have little stones here, and then they have a different stone here for the path. You know, I got the, I'm not sure, this looks like they made something to look like a rock or a pond there with that turtle. So lots and lots and lots of detail in this. Here's one with the fairy lights. You can see how cute that is at night. That would be really cute. They have a little bench here that's in front. This could be a pond, I guess. I don't know exactly what the white stones, what they're going for. They again have a path. They have this little trellis over, a little table thing over here in the gazebo. And I love the addition when people add these little pots. You know, like you have pots outside your house. Why wouldn't fairies want them as well? Here's another one. Little signs are really cute. Welcome fairies. You know, they have a little watering can over here with something growing out of it. I think this might be a well. Wells are pretty popular with fairy gardens. They've made this little fence. You can see this little fence, and then surrounding the gardens, and they have their paths, and then they have the thing, and this little thing of apples. This is adorable. So yeah, lots of little details, and they add something. So you can sit there and look at this for a long time and see something different all the time. So here's our fisherman one again. You know, they have the details of the little boots. You can see this is that Pratt's black I was telling you about. This is probably a rosemary or something. Herbs go good with plants, as plants for these things too. I'm not sure where they got the fishing pole and the boots from, but they're really cute. I think they probably found that and built this whole thing around it. And again, we're back at one of these. Is a beach theme. They use a little umbrella, a little table. They got some sand in here. They got some stones to make the beach front. This is adorable. These are the kind of details that I really admire when people do this. They have, you know, a little teeth set over here. They made this into this is a chunk of wood that they turned into a little stove, you know. And I don't know if these are real or they just found flowers that tiny. This looks like it's a bowl of cherries or something. That's super cute, super inventive. This was something cute I noticed with the tents, especially if you do a camping theme, is you can make a little, they had instructions on this blog to how to make this. You know, it was not a big deal. They had a couple pieces of felt that you glued the stones to and the sticks and made it into a little campfire. Totally easy, you could do that. Here's a well that somebody made, which I'm not even sure if they did anything with that or just glued a bunch of stones together. You could do it around a cap or something if you wanted to have a form. Added some sticks and some things to it here. Super cute. And here's our garden again. We saw this in the beginning. Very, very detailed. I really like this fairy garden. So this one, they didn't cover all the dirt. Here again, the chairs, we saw this in the beginning too. So in conclusion, I think you should have fun and let your imagination go. You should, fairy gardens are living things and you can keep changing it and keep growing it as you add more ideas. I saw in the chat, some of you already had fairy gardens. Okay, what time? Sure, just get started. Okay, it doesn't look like. So I will take questions now. If anyone has any Q&A, you can add. What is this about a kit? Okay, so when I did sign up, I was able to put together like 25 like starter kits for a fairy garden. I was only able to do 25, and then they were out. But does anybody have other questions about fairy gardens? I'm gonna look in that chat just to make sure there's nothing in there. Okay, so I'm gonna go over, well, I do have another one. I never had much luck finding succulents that weren't already potted. Oh yeah, actually, yes, I do have an idea where you can buy succulents. I see them at Ben Zealand, you know. I think you mean already potted in a another thing with other succulents and stuff. They do have little succulents. They're like $3 a piece or something like that over in Van Den Eng. Van Den Eng out on N. They sell little succulents. I also just was at, I don't recommend going to Lowe's, but I did find a mat or something that you could cut up and put in different places. But yeah, Van Den Eng, I highly recommend them. Do I have any book recommendations about fairy gardens? I am not, I don't have one in particular that I love. I think that's something though that you could definitely search for on infosoup.org and you'll just come up with something. I think, especially with fairy gardens, they're so visual, you know. There really isn't a lot of rules on putting them together, like and how to do it. It's just mostly like getting the different components and putting them together. Who got the kit? Okay, the peoples with the kit, there was the first 25 people that signed up, and I had contacted all of them and let them know. So those are the people that I got it. After 25, I ran out. I hope to have, I do this again and people can have a chance to see what's in it. And I can do that right now if nobody has more questions. I'm gonna take this. I'm going to stop sharing. There are plenty of mini plants, furniture, etc. in a doll area of craft stores. This is true. You can find a lot of things in craft stores. I also found some things at the dollar store, believe it or not, that had a lot of little things in it. Or, you know, sometimes rummage sales, you can find things that might be reusable for something else. Okay, stop share. Make this go away. Make sure this is unplugged. I'm going to take you, I have to move to a different room. Okay, so this is the fairy garden kit that some of you got and some of you did not. It includes, I had instructions with what is included in it and how to put it together. But it doesn't take that long. You got a little plant. This is not a plant that I recommended. I couldn't find any of those plants. I think it's a little a petunia or a pansy or one of those popular annuals that they have. We have some soil, which I recommend if you're doing in a container, use potting mix, not soil. We got some moss. We got some pebbles. I used, for the sake of being cheaper, I used aquarium gravel because it's not very expensive. And then we got the accessories, which are random. So when you put this together, you are going to take some moss because you have a hole in the bottom of your, you don't want your soil to go out that hole. So you're going to put a little layer of moss over the bottom so that your soil doesn't all go out your hole. So just kind of, you rip it up a little bit. The moss is kind of, you don't need a lot, just enough to cover the bottom of the thing. Doesn't have to be thick. And you do not have to use all of these things. Somebody asked me about that. They're like, well, I was trying to use it all. I'm like, well, you don't have to use it all. Okay, so once you got your soil in the bottom, you can see it just kind of covers the bottom. This also gives you a little, absorbs some of the moisture. And you got your soil. Now, I didn't have this in the directions, but I noticed when I put it together, it was kind of nice if I only filled it halfway. So, I'm gonna see what's going here. And now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get my plant. And you're going to want to put your plant, figure out where you want your plant in this garden. I think I'm going to do it off to the side. So you kind of squeeze the bottom and gently pull this out. Make a little hole where you want it. Put it in there. We'll add the rest of the soil around it. And pat that down. So that the plant is firmly in there. This one, the soil doesn't go all the way to the top, which is okay because you're going to have other things on top. Now, at this point, I would water, but I'm not going to do that because I don't have any water right now. Andy? So now, once you do that, you're going to have to figure out where you want your other things. Some of my accessories here. Let's see if I can see these little gnomes. This is a table. If you got one of these rubber banded things, this is a table and chair set. I rubber banded them so they didn't get lost in a little thingy. So I'm going to create a path. So again, on this thing, take some of this gravel, create a path here. Use and I'm going to put moss over the rest of the soil. I like it when you cover the soil, and this moss is kind of messy. You break it up in small pieces, makes it a little easier to work with. On this. I like to cover all of the soil. I just think it looks neater that way. And we have our little accessories. We'll put our little fairy in here. Put together this table and chair set. A little chair. We're gonna put that on the end of the path. And nothing is set in stone. You can always change it if you don't like how it looks. Little light house here. And a mushroom. And a gnome. We'll put him right on the path. He's walking there. So and there we go. Little fairy garden. I'm gonna put you under the tree more. That's all there is to it. So I hope this inspired you. I hope you got some ideas for something to do for your fairy gardens at home, in pots or out of pots. Let's see if anyone has any more questions. Let's see. I never had fire chart. Oh, maybe did that. Okay, so we're all done with questions. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you later. Bye.